Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing a good old office video because, well, I'm struggling to get out this week. The weather is horrendous. It's mid-April. It's bitterly cold. We're going right back into winter, not into summer. And on top of that, my parents are visiting, so I can't get out. But I thought to myself, what video do I want to make this week? And I get so many questions about the Nikon Z7 II. Is it a good camera? Is it better than my Fuji GFX50R, which is what I switched from to this camera? So today I'm going to go over the Z7 II and basically ask the question, was it a mistake to go to this camera? Do I have any regrets? And maybe I should go back to my GFX, which actually I still have. I never got rid of it. So I haven't been fully committed to this system. Yeah, so I never actually got rid of the GFX. Everything is still in this camera drawer. And that was 8 months ago. Now, the reason that I kept hold of my GFX for 8 months is because I was not confident that the Z7 II would be as good as the GFX. I thought that I might struggle and I might regret my decision. But I can say after 8 months of consistent use of the Z7 II that I have not noticed a difference in image quality. Now, I'm not saying that the Z7 II is as good as the GFX because the GFX is superb. However, with shooting the Z7 II, at not one point have I ever thought, oh, I wish I had shot that image with my GFX. Now, I'm sure if you went in and pixel peeped to 200% or, did some extreme lab testing, like really tried to lift those shadows or drop those highlights, then yeah, okay, I'm sure the GFX would come out on top. But in everyday shooting, normal shooting that 99.99% of us do, when I look at my images from the Z7 II, they look the same as the GFX. Like, I don't notice a real world difference. Now, I'm not saying that this Z7 II is the perfect camera. In fact, I have a list, an actual list of things that really annoy me about this camera, and I'm gonna end the video with that. In fact, I am happy to end the video with the things that bother me about this camera, and there's a few, so make sure you stick around for that rant. Now, most of those things are probably just me being an old miserable cynic, but the truth of it is this is an excellent value camera, and in fact that's the reason I have it. I looked at all of the competitors, the Sony A7 R4, the Canon R5, and this just came out as the perfect camera for me, certainly at that price point. Let me have a look here, bear with me. So if I was to be looking at a Sony A1 for the body only, I'd be looking at close to £6,000. The Canon R5, which is currently on sale, was £4,299, now £3,899, so close to £4,000. The Nikon Z7 II, £2,999, so £3,000. So that's a significant saving, but the camera, the sensor is phenomenal. The dynamic range that I can get out of this and the image quality that comes from this, well, hey, it's just up there.
The sensor really is up there with the best of them, but this is not the reason why I switched from the GFX50R. The reason is because I wanted access to more lenses, and most importantly, longer lenses, such as this 100-400, which is the kind of reach not possible with a Fuji medium format camera.
So in a nutshell, I prioritized value for money, image quality, lens selection, size and weight, and that is how I ended up at the Z7 II. But whilst being a great camera for the landscape photographer, because that's pretty much the only thing I shoot, it's not the best all-round camera out there. Like when I was shooting wildlife in Iceland, and a couple of the guys there had the R5, and a couple of guys had the Z9, the Z9. They were far superior. The autofocus, the frames per second, the amount that those cameras could do. Now, for me personally, that's not enough to make me regret the Z7 II decision, but if you're somebody who wants to shoot much more than landscapes, or maybe landscapes only make up half of your portfolio and you need something fast and on the ball, yeah, maybe that value for money might sort of come down on your list of priorities, and you might be thinking, well, I need more performance, or I might look at a Canon R5 or even the Nikon Z9, which is an absolute monster. I'm not sure I couldn't deal with that bulk personally. You know, if only the Nikon Z9 was in a camera like this, then we'd be laughing, but it's not. So before we get onto my list of grievances with this camera, which there are some, but I'm petty, grumpy, miserable person anyway, so you might look at my list of negatives and just tell me to shut up. In fact, let me know in the comments if you think that I'm being stupid with my negatives. And I'm almost certain that you will, because some of them are very petty. But before we get onto that, I just want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Now, as a photographer, you definitely need your own website, but if you're anything like me, then building one is just incredibly overwhelming and too technical. So therefore, unless you know coding, you have to go through a web developer and it can be very expensive. But with Squarespace, you can just do all of that yourself. You can register your own domain and you can build your own website using their very intuitive drag and drop system. You can get yourself a beautiful online gallery. You can even have an online store so you can sell your prints. And assuming you've got all of your media and your copy ready, there's no reason why you can't knock out a website in a day. And if you struggle, they've got 24/7 customer care. But me personally, I just recommend going onto YouTube, looking up some tutorials, and then you can build a website very straightforwardly, which isn't a word, by the way. It's not a word. So if you fancy that, go to squarespace.com/Heaton and you'll get a free trial. And if you like your free trial, use the offer code Heaton for 10% off your first purchase. All right, so the single worst, most annoying and irritating thing I have found with the Nikon Z7 II is the fact that it bins the pixels when you crop your image. As a landscape photographer, so much of my compositional choices are built around my aspect ratio. I love to shoot a square ratio so I can contain my subject. I like to shoot a 16:9 so I can show the expansive space. And of course, I like the 3:2 standard ratio. But if I crop to the 1:2, which is square, sorry, that's 1:1. If I crop to the 1:1 square, or if I go for a 4:5 or 16:9, the camera bins those pixels, whereas any other camera on the market that's not Nikon, any other camera, if you apply a crop, the raw file is still the full-size file, which means if it was windy, raining, you were cold, you didn't quite get your composition right, you can go in and you can adjust your framing. You've got the full file, whereas Nikon, if you shoot square, it gives you a square file. Now, I'm realizing that this is supposed to be a bullet point, but I'm waffling on. I don't understand why, because I know every other camera out there keeps the pixels, so it can't be a technical thing. I think, is it an arrogance thing? Is it that Nikon think, well, if you crop, then you should commit to the crop? Well, I totally disagree with that. Is it the fact that maybe they're just unaware? Nobody's raised this issue with them. Well, I'm here raising it right now. Nikon, you need a software update that means when you shoot with an aspect ratio change, it doesn't bin the pixels, you still have the full raw file. There we go, that bothers me more than anything. Every time I go out with this camera, I have to clean the sensor. I don't know what it is. I think it's part of these new mirrorless cameras have a bigger lens mount, which I suppose is going to let in more dust, but there's no cover on the sensor. I know a lot of cameras out there, when you remove the lens, a little shutter or a curtain or something comes over the sensor. Well, this camera, that doesn't happen, and as a result, I now have to carry sensor cleaning swabs as part of my kit and clean the sensor at the end of every shoot. If you're a Z7 II user, let me know, do you ever have this problem? Sometimes when I pick up the camera, I'll pick it up like this, and then the memory card slot pops open. I don't know what it is, there's a thumb grip and it's on the memory card slot, and I have often opened this accidentally. It doesn't matter, but it's just annoying. The screen on the Z7 II only flips out one way, which means when you shoot vertical and you're up high or down low, you can't tilt the screen to see the image. It's just one of those, it's just, you know, this is a relatively new camera and I would have thought that surely this would flip the other way, but it doesn't. And as I mentioned before, the autofocus on this isn't the best. It's not the fastest if you're shooting wildlife, as I've experienced, and I have had a few misses in the field to the point where now when I shoot with this camera, I tend to just go manual focus and magnify all the way in, because just part of me I worry that the autofocus is gonna miss. So if you've been a fan of this channel for any amount of time, you'll know I'm not the world's best technical camera reviewer. You know, I'm pretty cynical, if I'm honest. I am led very much by my heart and emotions rather than my head and tech sheets and spec sheets, and I don't do side-by-side comparisons. I don't see the point. There are a lot more channels that do that way better than I do, but what I'm happy to do is give my honest opinion about a product that I use. So if you want an all-round camera that does everything, I probably wouldn't necessarily say this was the best camera to go for. By spending a bit more money, you could get a better all-round camera through its competitors. But if you want an outstanding landscape camera, image quality phenomenal, you're a slow shooter, you take your time, you contemplate your images, and you want the best image quality for the money, I would say this. You know, that's the conclusion I came to, which is why I've got this camera in my hand. It really is. So there you go. I hope this was, you know, if nothing else, entertaining. And please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, specifically about my negatives. You know, do you experience any of that yourself? All right, cheers, guys. Hopefully back in the field next week.